Okay guys, it has been quite a while. We are back now. This YouTube channel is growing, so thank you for your support. We are going to talk about 3 things that change the completion date, 4 things that change the prices. 3 things that change the completion date, 4 things that move the prices. Compensation event, acceleration, acceptance of the effects, and inflation. We are going to talk about that. But before that, let me just say this. In 2025, we are going to do some new things. If you are the one who would love those type of materials like bite-sized passages, bite-sized emails, bite-sized materials, information on NEC 4, NEC 3, whatever contract, or if you are the one who would love to have some one-on-one support on NEC contracts, then that may be for you. We have been helping quite a lot of clients, contractors, consultants on a one-on-one basis. In 2025, we are going to expand our service. If that is you, simply sign up in nec4.uk, sign up, and then we will be in touch. Coming back to the topic now, 3 things to move the completion date, 4 things to move the prices. First one, compensation event. Compensation event. Will it move the prices up or down? And will it change the completion date to a later date or an earlier date? So let me explain. A compensation event is simply an event that a project manager is going to compensate the contractor. If an event is on the list, then it is a compensation event. For example, clause 60.1. For example, those additional compensation events in the contract data, or those compensation events in the set clauses, or those compensation events in the secondary options. So those are compensation events. A compensation event will move the completion date to a later date. That's completion date. A compensation event cannot move the completion date to an earlier date. And that's the rule. Where in the contract says so? In the contract, we do have another mechanism called an acceleration to move the completion date forward, meaning to an earlier date. A compensation event is an event that moves the completion date to a later date only. So that's the rule. How about the prices? A compensation event obviously will move the prices up. How about moving the prices down? It will also move the prices down. Why is that so? Say, if a project manager issues a project manager instruction change in the scope to such an effect that the scope is reduced, then more work, higher prices. Lesser work, of course, is lower prices. So, a reduction of the scope is still a change to the scope. And therefore, that is still a compensation event. Then in that sense, then a compensation event may move the prices down as well. So a compensation event will move the completion date to a later date, and it may move the prices up or down. It depends. The second one is acceleration. Acceleration is under clause 36 of the NEC 4 ECC contract. What is an acceleration? Simply put, an acceleration is a mechanism to move the completion date forward. By forward, we mean to move the completion date to an earlier date. So that is an acceleration under clause 36. How about the prices? If you want me to accelerate, then of course you need to pay up. So generally speaking, an acceleration will move the prices up. So that's the concept. Now the details, we may need another video to talk about that, but generally speaking, an acceleration is a proposal. Generally speaking, we expect an acceleration to move the prices up. Generally speaking, we expect an acceleration being a mechanism to move the completion date forward. It's not a mechanism to chase delay. There are some details in there. So what delay are we talking about? The delay that we are talking about here is a time duration between the plan's completion and the completion date. If the planned completion is later than the completion date, that is the delay. We are saying an acceleration is not a mechanism to chase the delay, meaning it's not a mechanism to move the planned completion to chase the completion date. It is only a mechanism to move the completion date to an earlier date. So that's acceleration. The third one is acceptance of defects. Then in order to understand that, we need to understand what is a defect. Basically speaking, a defect is something that deviates from the scope. So if you accept the defect, you need to change the scope. If the scope is changed, to accept the defect, will that move the completion date to an earlier date? We expect so. So originally you need to spend some time to correct that defect. Now you don't need to. Therefore, it bears an effect to move the completion date to an earlier date. How about the prices? Originally you need to correct that defect. Now you don't need to correct that defect. Then we expect the prices to go down. So that's theory. Practically speaking, as you can imagine, the acceptance of defect depends on what defects are you talking about. If those defects are really so minor to such an extent that the completion date and the prices, we don't expect a huge change or we don't expect a considerable change, then so be it. NEC has already clarified in their user guide saying the change to the completion date and prices has to be some reduction, but sometimes we accept that it can be nominal. So that's acceptance of defect. These three things will move the completion date and the prices. The fourth one is about inflation. Inflation in NEC 4 is specified under secondary option X1. We do have another video talking about the price adjustment factor on how to adjust the price due to inflation. If you're interested, you can go to that video and have a look. Inflation, of course, most of the time we expect inflation to go up. So inflation will change the prices both ways. But generally speaking, most of the time we expect the prices to go up. It can go down. Obviously, it's due to inflation. If the inflation increases, prices go up. If the inflation becomes deflation, then prices will go down. So that is the fourth one, inflation. So once again, three things that move the completion date, four things that move the prices. The first one, compensation event. Second one, acceleration. Third one, acceptance of the defects. These three things will move the completion date and prices. The fourth thing is inflation. Of course, it will change the prices. So I hope that this video is still useful for you. Again, we are moving into a new year and we are doing some new things. If you would like to receive some updated information, sign up for the newsletters in nec4.uk and we will be in touch. Happy New Year!